Wire remains my most beloved punk and art rock group, if only because much of their music remains relevant today. Mood music for our interesting times, I think you'll agree. Mass protests in Israel and France fill me both with despair and hope. Despair at the swell of authoritarianism rising everywhere, and hope in the public uprisings against it. Israel's situation is the most existentially desperate. Native right-wing blood-and-soil extremism, aided by U.S. fascist money, threatens the very purpose Israel has always said it was created for, to be a homeland for the Jewish people, a refuge against another Holocaust. It is homegrown extremists who would stand that idea on its head, and it may be the fate of an apartheid state will turn on the lessons supposed to have been learned nearly a century ago. Only time will tell. While Israel's circumstance is the most dire as Netanyahu's extremist coalition pushes Israel deeper into fascism, Macron's increasingly authoritarian acts in France put that nation into an uproar. Fortunately, French protest culture is legendary. They are willing to call a spade, and the population has not forgotten its own national history.
Here we are doing a little apéro, which means we are eating chips and drinking beers. And this is a meeting, small meeting, to contest the reform of Emmanuel Macron, the project of law of Emmanuel Macron about the age of retirement. So people are just going here to contest the politic of Emmanuel Macron. The police is really harsh with people. They are beating people. They are using gas against people. So no, it's really violent. And I send a message to people watching us abroad to support us, to help us, to say to Emmanuel Macron that this is not normal. This is not a normal situation, and that other people abroad, we need them to say it's violent, because this is helping the French people to be safe, because it's not safe anymore to protest in France.
The way that it's coming across in British media is that the protesters are the aggressors. Would you say that it was the opposite? Yeah. We are just defending our rights.
What's energized them more, it seems, judging by the number of high schools that have gone, where students have gone on strike, is when the government decided to railroad the legislation through with turning the vote on pension reform into a vote of no confidence instead. We don't want,
there is not any person in France who wants to work 2 more years. No one. It's like 93% of the people working don't want to work too much years. 2 more years, sorry. So this is not normal. This is not a democracy if the will of the people is not heard, not respected. So the violent are not the people that are protesting to defend their rights. The violent are the people who are using violence against the people's rights.
On Wednesday, January 18th, multiple police departments descended upon Weelani People's Park in unprecedented numbers and force. They blocked access to the park on both roads and bike trails. Some people were arrested for attempting to document police actions that day at the park. Gunfire was heard at 9:04 a.m. About a dozen shots fired in rapid succession, followed by a loud boom about a minute later. For hours after the murder of Tortuguita, police continued to hunt, assault, and arrest our brave forest defenders.
6 people were arrested after a protest in downtown Atlanta on Saturday. Demonstrators vandalized buildings and lit a police car on fire. The violence followed the killing of an environmental activist during another protest last week, which rather against the building of a police training facility.
Yeah, well, definitely, and this is what came through the whole population, and even in, like the union labor and stuff, and everyone is very not agreeing, obviously, with this way of
proceeding. If it becomes violent on Tuesday, like the way it was at times on last Thursday, will that help or hurt the cause of the unions?
A lot of people are focusing a lot on violence. There is violence, that's for sure. But comparing to the millions and the number of people that are actually going to go and protest tomorrow down the street with like no violence, I mean, it's insignificant almost. What's significant is the brutality and the fact that today there is 2 persons that were protesting in Sainte-Soline that are in coma because of police brutality.
And if we lose, this will be over, and we know that Emmanuel Macron will be harder and harder and harder with the French people. So this is a moment when we need to stop him, and we need to stop his violence also. And we are demanding the dissolution of some part of the police, which is really violent. They're called the Bravem in France. They are really violent. They're on motos, and they come and they just beat you, and that's it. Okay? So this shouldn't exist in a democratic country. This is not normal. People have the right to protest. They have the right to not agree with the French president. This is what a democracy is about.
In the UK, our parliament is actually passing a law to make it illegal to protest or to strike. I mean, what would you say to the people of the UK? Should they be concerned about that?
Yeah, of course. The first word I want to say is support, a word of support. And I want to say to the British people, fight, protest against this law. We are in a moment in Europe when the people are rising. They are raising their head, and they're saying no to that sort of things. We have seen that in Britain, in the UK, there were a lot of protests during, I think, November or December, and this was really good for us. We were watching you, and we were looking at you and saying, wow, they're strong. So it gave us some power, some courage to fight in our own country. So
how do these protests make Macron look on the international stage?
Like a dictator, I think. I've seen that the Financial Times said that France was the most developed country. No, the developed country looking the most to a dictator. I don't know the word, dictatorship. So it's quite right. This is not normal that you can't see. You can't just sit here. You have the police that is coming and just saying to the people, you have to leave. This is not normal. We should be able to protest. And during the French Revolution, for the first republic we had a constitution that allowed the right to make a revolution, which was a really nice constitution. So it was said when the government is against the people and oppressing the people, you have the right to the insurrection. That was in the constitution. Okay, so we are people who knew like 5 or 6 revolutions, and Macron should know it.
The populations in these 2 nations have risen up to repel the authoritarian lurch in their governments The people recognize the overt threat. The US and UK have yet to rise to the same level of alarm. Yet we must, because the reason for protest will not subside by indifference or by an orgy of political repression and police action.
I got a neighbor, and right now he's puking blood because he works right there in the main part of it.
People are going back to work because they have to.
They need that money. Not like these big boys in North Fork. They're sitting behind a desk or sitting at home, kicked back in their chair, enjoying themselves. Because they got the money coming in. Do they care about us? No, they don't even care about their own employees.